Welcome to the Check Your Head podcast, the podcast where notable musicians and experts share stories and solutions for mental health and addiction recovery. I'm your host, Fong, and today we have a special Podcasthon episode where 2,800 podcasters from around the world choose a nonprofit to spotlight. And today I've chosen Altadena Musicians, a foundation that's helped musicians find thousands and thousands of instruments and vinyl records, getting them back into the hands of people that lost theirs in the Eaton and Palisade fires in Los Angeles. I'll be talking to musician and founder Brandon J. For our featured musician, I'm excited to have singer-songwriter Nick Hexum of 311 share his secrets about a mental health and addiction story that he kept hidden for more than a decade. With 311 being known for their songs like Down, Amber, and Beautiful Disaster, many of them filled with lyrics of positivity and unity, and high-energy shows since 1988, you can imagine how it was surprising to hear Nick talk about his self-doubt, anxiety, and perfectionism that eventually led to a terrifying addiction. Having interviewed Nick in the past, I was honored to be the one to hear this honest and vulnerable story of addiction and recovery, one that he admits he's never shared with his fans before today. I'll be playing a clip of Nick Hexum's song Lonely Existence from his side project EP Waxing Nostalgic, which dropped in 2025. So now let's hear part one of Nick Hexum share his story. I feel like the more honest and open you are, even with the most vulnerable times, those are the times, right, that really help people and say, oh my gosh, Nick really understands what it means,
I'm all about it.
To go overboard.
Speaking my language.
I've interviewed you a few times, and I just remember the first time that I interviewed you, I don't know why I said this, but I said something about how fans would get crazy and they would, just fawn over you. And I don't know why I said something about, it's so embarrassing now that I say, but throwing condoms at you like some kind of a weird sexual thing. And I just remember you busting up so hard, like, what are you talking about, Mari? And I was just like, oh my God, what did I just say?
Yeah, it's a random image because I think there was some women throwing bras, but I don't recall condoms. But if you saw that, I'll take your word for it. I mean, it's just a weird thing to throw, like, here, be safe.
I didn't see a thing.
Okay.
That was just me being,
imaginative,
yeah. Creative. But your laugh really stuck with me. I'm a 311 fan. If you could see me being just a big dork about it, wearing the T-shirt.
Makes me feel comfortable to know that you like 311. I feel approved of, which is, it's helpful, but it's not going to actually fix me, but I do like being approved of.
Well, this is kind of a big revelation right now. You are so positive with your music, but now you're talking about fixing you, which kind of brings it home because we live long enough. We go through traumas, we go through healing, we go through fixing, and then we lose our way. I'm going to start with your solo music because you call it Americana, which is different from what you've really dived into with 311. You really didn't get into the blues and this little country twang. But at the same time, I could feel like the Nick Hexum stamp is on each song, and I love that. But you have a trilogy. The trilogy is Waxing Nostalgic, and then you have Full Memories, and then you have Waning Time. What does that represent to you?
Well, a lot of big picture thinking about my life to go from nostalgia to the fullness that my life is now, but then also waning time. We put all three EPs into phases of Hope and Hollow because these are moon phases, and it's, the cycle of life. And in the human life, you only get one cycle, which is to go from waxing to waning. Being 55 years old, I did start thinking like, I do feel like I'm in my prime now, but my time is limited. Everybody's time is limited. So getting to this age, now my oldest daughter is driving and looking at colleges, like, okay, this phase is coming to an end. And I realized I still have a lot to say creatively. So I wanted to open up another avenue where I could just say as much as I wanted because people are still listening. It gets to a point, I remember it was over 10 years ago when Aerosmith said, we're not going to make any more albums because nobody's paying attention. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. Less people are paying attention than were in the 90s, but that's okay. There's still plenty of people to share with, where I'm getting much more vulnerable, and it's something that just, it's not a band thing to get super duper personal like that. This is me talking about my thoughts and my fears and hard things that I've been through and hope and everything. So there was also some revelations that I had I absorb a lot of books. I listen to audiobooks, and I probably take in one or two a month. And the Rick Rubin book really helped me to talk about perfectionism. He says that frequent releases is key to not getting locked up in writer's block, because writer's block is where I can write a song, but is it good enough? It's not good enough. That's perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can sit down and write a song. It's just when you're stuck in, is it good enough? And the people pleasing and the need of approval and the fear of rejection and all that. So you just have to walk through that. So frequent releases is very important for an artist, just to keep the spigot open. So that's why I wanted to do this. And then also I just became interested in Americana and bluegrass sounds that, frankly, the guys in 311, if I say, come on, let's do a bluegrass song, they're like, I don't know. You know what I mean? So I do also have new 311 songs in the pipeline that I'm really excited about, and the other guys are too. It's a side project. I always kind of want to make sure that people know, like, I'm not going solo. This is a side project, which is just opening up an extra avenue for me to make sure that I'm keeping the creativity flowing. And then also to talk about the names of the EPs. I've never, until a song like 1978, gone so full on into nostalgia and talking about what my childhood was like, and that really cool experience of writing a song with my sister. And like, let's talk about what life was like, talking to Angie, when you were 10 and I was 8 in 1978. It was a pre-technology childhood where what was technology at the time was a magic 8-ball or a slip and slide, or, that was like the new cool toy. We did things like building forts and kickball, and, the boredom made us be creative. And now nobody gets bored anymore because there's just so much entertainment all the time.
And then all the technology kind of just saps away all that free time we had as kids just to play with rocks and in the dirt. And I remember those times. What do you look back when you're a kid and you're just so tied into technology? Technology is always going to continue, but when does it go too far? And when do we start stepping back and say, you know what? Why don't we take these things that we used to do that were maybe healthier, that were spurring creativity, that were giving us these memories, that shape us?
Yeah. I don't know if the dangers of social media they could be overblown, but there definitely is a thing where people put out the best side of themselves, and that can make other people feel bad, whether it's about their appearance or they're stuck in their job. All these other people are off doing these fun things, or look how wonderful our marriage is, or look at my perfect kids, or whatever. So I've realized that in the effort to become more and more vulnerable, I wanted to put out fears, and also to talk about dark moments in my life when, like, I lost my brother to an overdose, and how I had just completely refused to talk about that until finally I realized, like, hey, this is something that people can relate with. And this was a really dark point in my life of trying to help him, and nothing was really clicking until finally we lost him. So I think that you can definitely overcome the urge to try and present yourself as this, like, perfect person by having the courage to be vulnerable. And that goes not just on social media, but being vulnerable with asking for help with your mental health, like recovery, and therapy and all that stuff is like such a big part of my life. And I don't feel ashamed to say that anymore. Like at first I wanted to keep that a secret because are people going to like me if they know? No, this is the human condition. We all have stuff we need to work on. And then also one of my favorite things to do, like I was doing right until you got here, was trimming brush and cutting down these trees that were overhanging and dragging them to me to get back to working with my hands and touch grass and all that is a very important thing to turn off the phones and just kind of do things that have existed for hundreds of years of working with your hands and kicking a soccer ball around and things like that.
Well, I feel like your music is also representing that. When I listen to it, there's a melancholy tone to it. There were times where I felt like the blues were coming out, but there was also a natural feel to it, almost like I was out in nature. And there was a simplicity that was really beautiful. Like, I'll write about you.
I'd like to write you a love song.
I'd like to write you a love song. It was so beautiful yet simple that it almost felt like this little boy was writing a love song to his mother, you know, and you could take it so many ways. One thing that you mentioned when I walked in is you mentioned your sobriety. And we were talking about how we all go through these journeys. And your mother was a psychotherapist.
Yep.
Your grandfather was a Southern Baptist pastor.
And psychotherapist. He opened the first counseling center in Kansas City. So he was groundbreaking. He wrote all these books on psychology and marriage and grace and getting in touch with your higher power. And he was this really, really cool person. And I took a lot of good and bad traits from my grandpa Lofton. That's my middle name is Lofton. He had extreme risk tolerance like I do. He just tried a lot of new things and accomplished a lot in his life and became like a bit of a celebrity in the Midwest. He went up against the segregation in the Baptist church down in the South and made some enemies by standing up against segregation. So I have a ton of respect for him. He was also a person that drank too much and liked pills, just like me. So I can see myself in him and, you know, I need to be sober and I'm glad that I'm sober. Also, my mom, people say, well, where do you think 311's positivity came from? Is like my sister has a degree in psychology and basically have 3 psychologists. My stepfather is a psychologist. So I had all these like solution everywhere. And knowing that my attitude, looking at the glass half full, was such an important thing. And it just kind of came intuitively. Like during the 90s, we were a bit out of step with what was going on because there was all these like angry, entitled white kids that were so pissed off. I'm like, what are you so mad about, guys? Like this, it's all right to feel good. It's all right for nothing to be wrong, as I sang in the song 1, 2, 3 off Grassroots. And we were out of step with a lot of the angry, heavy music that we were lumped with. But I'm not going to pretend I'm pissed off. In fact, we'd kind of make fun of those people in songs like Misdirected Hostility and Hostile Apostle. Like when we were kids in Omaha, they used to say like, well, don't worry, because if there's a nuclear attack, it'll get us here first in Omaha because we have a big army base. I'm like, that's supposed to make me feel better? You know what I mean? But that was a threat of there could be a war. You know, the Soviet Union had fallen. In the 90s, it was this prosperous time, but it was a disconnect with the culture at the time. So I felt like we're going to stick to our guns and be positive, but that also could run a risk of like toxic positivity. But I also have had these struggles, whether it's heartbreak or addiction or regret and, you know, keeping secrets. Now I'm cleaning out the closet in kind of a public way, and it feels good to do that. Like when you contacted me, like mental health and addiction, great. That's right up my alley. Let's do.
Well, I think one of the things is it's easy to talk about change. It's easy to talk about what you should do, but to put it into practice is another thing. It can be really difficult, and things like relapse or where people might look at behavior as I could see where that would be difficult, where you're talking about positivity and all of this great stuff, but maybe behind the scenes, you might be going through your own sobriety, having to deal with pills and things like that. When did that all start? When did you start feeling like, you know what, my drinking is getting out of hand, or, what pills were you doing as a solution at the time?
Well, I think it was in the early 2000s where I started to find that pills like benzodiazepines, like Ativan, Valium, was a chemical solution to self-doubt, to anxiety, to fears. And I was like, take this and I don't have to feel nervous or scared and, playing for these huge audience. I could just go out there and be like, I am not nervous at all when I take this pill. But the thing is, on tour, you don't do something just one day. If it works on a Tuesday, then I'm going to do it again on Wednesday and Thursday. And then next thing you know, I'm like strung out. And then,
What does that mean, strung out? What does that look like to you?
That if I didn't take it, I would feel really nervous.
Okay, so it'd be almost like a boomerang effect where it came back even stronger and worse.
Right.
Okay, so which made you continue to take them, I would.
Yeah.
And there's a tolerance that builds up.
Absolutely, because you can put a Band-Aid and anesthetize your fears temporarily, but your fears, like we need fears. That's why we don't go up and try and pet a lion. It's a part of the human experience. So if you numb those down, they're going to be doing push-ups and you're going to get to a place eventually where you can't get that relief. And then you're like, keeping secrets. I've got this pill habit going. And then when you add alcohol to that, then you just instant asshole, instant blackout, bad behavior. And then the next day, like, what did I do last night?
That's kind of a lethal combination too, as far as what I've heard.
Oh yeah.
I've had people
die from it all the time.
Alcohol and benzodiazepines. People go into their cars and they just crash. They're just completely out of it. So you're doing the benzodiazepines to kind of like get you on stage and not have the nervousness. And then you would be drinking at the same time. I mean, how did you handle that? Because that is kind of a potent thing. I mean, I've seen you guys perform on stage so many different times. You always seemed like you were together. That's what it appeared to be on stage. When did it become a problem?
Well, the way it looked was that I would come off tour and be like, okay, I gotta mellow out. I gotta like clean up my act. I gotta stop taking pills. But it was just like too difficult because stuff would come up that I needed to do. And then I would end up just taking them again. So I would say the years like 2004, 5, and 6 were pretty blurry because there was just a lot of pills. And
was it only benzodiazepines, or were you doing like weed, or were you doing other kinds of like experimenting?
You name it. I did stay away from stimulants. I didn't do like coke or meth or anything like that.
Okay.
But yeah.
So you like downers or things
opiates, weed, booze, benzos. That was my safe place. And it just completely stopped working. And I lost the ability to choose. I couldn't stop because I got to go on tour and I don't have time to, really truly clean up my act because it takes a long time for that stuff to get out of your body. Benzos are a longer kick way longer than a stimulant like coke. Coke is out of your body in like a day, but it's mentally addictive. Opiates is like a medium. You can kick in like 5 or 6 days. Benzos, weeks, months.
Wow.
To get your confidence back and to feel comfortable in your skin again.
Yeah.
For me, the way I illustrate was like, I got it. Okay, I don't got it. So I asked for help. I went to rehab. I just completely surrendered to the whole process of taking help and getting honest, getting involved in recovery, connecting with other sober people and making sober friends and learning how to have sober fun, learning how to rock again sober, which was scary after, for those last few years, I always had a little something on stage. So to go back in 2007 sober on stage was super terrifying. And then I remember it was on my 5th show that I had this breakthrough and just rocked the hell out, that I was like, oh my God, I don't have to be scared. I don't have to be high. Like, I'm free. I'm free. It was so beautiful. And I haven't had a drink since October 18th, 06. So then it was 07 when we went back on tour, and it was scary.
Yeah.
And I needed a lot of support. I had a sober companion be there for me. I also had the experience of running a marathon, which I had this whole like really beautiful experience of I can do stuff sober. I'm free. This is like breaking the chains of addiction.
Because you kind of feel like a slave, right?
Absolutely.
You've lost control, and something else outside of you is controlling your life, your behavior, your thoughts, all of these things. And so you become a slave to it. You know, I fortunately have not had much addiction in my family. And so I personally haven't really gone through an addiction besides sugar. But I have had a relationship where, you know, somebody was dealing with addiction, you know, just
Codependence. Yeah.
it's difficult. It's difficult for everybody
It's a family disease.
in different ways. Yeah. But what I want to know is, just going back, there's always a turning point where things get so bad that you're just tired of feeling sick. And maybe it's a slow burn, or maybe it's an explosive event that happened that made you say, I've got to get help. I mean, what was it for you?
It was trying to get off this stuff myself and having such a feeling of terror, and felt like my body was going into seizures and hallucinating. Like, I think a plane's going to crash into the house, like this crazy paranoia, not sleeping at all. And then I was like, I need help with this.
How long did that last? Were you trying to taper yourself off slowly from these different pills?
Yeah, the taper thing was just such a, I was like writing down everything I was taking, but then like something would come up and I'd be like, fuck it, I need more. I mean, I just couldn't do it on my own. So it was a middle of the night, panic-stricken phone call to the number on my insurance card. I need help. I have to go to rehab. And they were like, well, there's a place in Glendale where we can take you. And I'm like, I'm there. And then I went first to the hospital for a medical detox.
Right.
But it was still like super uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It wasn't like one of these spas out in Malibu where they keep you sedated. No, I was still wide awake, but at least I had people there telling me I was going to live, because I felt I was feeling like I was dying.
Now, were they giving you any kind of medication to make that withdrawal easier? Because you were in a medical facility, or were they just kind of talking you through this withdrawal?
You know, very little. They mostly, like, I had patch that was to give me a slow release, which is, I think, more of like a blood pressure thing to just...
It eases you down.
Yeah.
I was in pharmaceuticals for a big part of my career, so I had to learn a lot about that. Benzodiazepines and antidepressants. But yeah, I do know that they use certain medications to help bring you down, and sometimes even mimic the kind of drugs that you were taking, just like an interim as you
just
get off.
Like a severe alcoholic, they need to give you a little alcohol for a while so you don't come off too fast. Like, I only remember they gave me 2 Ativans when I first got there, and then that was it. So mostly I was just squirming and awake. But, you know, I'm actually glad that I didn't go to one of those heavily medicated places, because I needed to be wide awake to remember how it was and to hear the message of hope of other recovering people, to hear how they had come through like super gnarly things. And I could be like, well, if it works for you, I guess there's hope for me. Like, I needed a lot of emotional support because I had felt so alone, because it was just my secret thing that nobody knew about. Like, you're a 311 fan. You didn't know that I was going through that, right? Like, I was really worried that everyone was going to find out about what was really going on with me. And so I developed this community of support, and it was just the best thing.
Well, let me ask you this, because the secret that you were keeping, I mean, did your band know? I mean, these are people that work with you and are living with you, your wife. did they know, and how did it affect your relationship with the band and your love partner, your wife?
I didn't have a wife then. Yeah, this predates my awesome wife, Nikki. I met her in sobriety.
Okay.
But my bandmates and family members were worried, maybe pissed by,
'Cause you're
erratic behavior. Like, come on, dude, get your shit together. And it just created a lot of distance. So I felt super isolated because people just were sick of my shit.
When I saw you last, which was around that time, actually, you had broken up with a serious relationship, and I think that was difficult for you. Now, that chapter of your life, looking back, were you drinking more during that time? Were you relying on pills?
Yeah, that was part of the acceleration of pretending that something like that didn't bother me and just like not even taking any time to grieve, but just like I'm on to the next thing and anesthetizing my, hurt feelings. I hadn't developed the tools to deal with like big feelings. I was using chemicals to help with that. So that was definitely part of it.
Did you feel like you went into depression during that time, or have you experienced that?
I don't choose to use that word because I choose to put a feeling on it, because I heard that from a therapist once. If I went in there, I feel kind of depressed. And she was like, well, can you put a feeling on that? And I was like, okay, maybe it's just sad or scared, or you know what I mean? Because to me, like my baseline now being drug-free, I don't have a problem with depression, but I do have feelings and now I have tools for dealing with them. But yeah, I was sad and hurt and embarrassed and those different type of things that might look a lot like depression, anxiety. But yeah, I definitely was going through some big feelings and I didn't have the tools to deal with it because I didn't have any help, and I was keeping a lot of things inside. And I've alluded to this in lyrics before that, in the song Make It Rough, I say, I was so good at pretending and denying when things bothered me. That was my natural defense, but it'll stay with you. You have to deal with grieving, trauma, addiction, whatever it is. You got to deal with it. So between now and 2006, I've been developing my tool belt. And a lot of that comes from trying to help other people with what they're going through.
Next up, we have our nonprofit spotlight for Podcasthon. Brandon J., founder of Altadena Musicians. Since the tragedy of the Eaton and Palisade fires, I'd like to mention a few other nonprofits that came to the rescue that include CORE and All Hands and Hearts, who assisted in smoke and ash remediation of homes, Row and A Sense of Home, which helped replace furniture and other household goods, and NHS, Neighborhood Housing Services of LA County. Thank you for being the rainbow after some very hard rain and fire. Now let's hear how Altadena Musicians came to the rescue for musicians after these fires. For Podcasthon, I decided to choose Altadena Musicians as a nonprofit I wanted to spotlight because so many of us have been affected by the Eaton fire, the Palisades fire, and really fires across the country. And I love to see people that act and do good in this world. And Altadena Musicians is a nonprofit that is doing that right after the Eaton fire. So welcome to the Check Your Head podcast, Brandon. I'm thankful that you're here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
I wanted to start with your story of the Eaton fire. I read that your house did burn down and you lost quite a bit, but can you tell me what your experience was?
We're a family of four. My wife and I are both music composers. We're best known for doing this score on that Netflix show called Orange is the New Black. Basically, when we left, we grabbed a few important things, but we thought we were going to be returning in a few days, and our house was going to be too smoky to be staying there. So we left, and we couldn't believe what happened to the town. Just the whole town burned down. It was crazy. I knew that it was windy and it was dangerous, but I just didn't realize that the embers were going to travel that far and that they were going to burn most of the houses from the inside out. There was a guy that lived around the corner from us that saved like 7 houses with a garden hose.
My God.
But that wasn't necessarily safe. There's somebody that perished with the garden hose in their hand. I'm just grateful that we're okay. And we grabbed a few things that were important to us. I grabbed one of my guitars and got one of my wife's guitars. And thankfully we took the guinea pigs. I was like, I don't know. It was terrifying. I was more afraid of the effects of the wind than the fire. It was so windy.
Those were hurricane-style winds. I think they were like 100 miles per hour. I literally just grabbed my dog, I grabbed my computer and some important documents, and I got out of there. I just got this feeling that this was dangerous.
Everything that we ever had was gone and just hard to process. There's so many families, they lost their home, they lost their church, they lost their kids' schools. It's hard for people that aren't around, get the scope of how many homes went, both in the Palisades and in Altadena. So many people were displaced.
It is a long journey, and it's something that's hard to understand if you haven't gone through it. Because you lost your music studio and you lost a lot of instruments. How many instruments do you think that you lost in the fires?
We haven't counted them all yet, but it's somewhere between 140 and 200. Because I'm a percussion player, you accumulate instruments over your lifetime. Things are given to you, you buy things, and just come into your possession. Between me and my wife, we had 2 banjos, we had 2 mountain dulcimers, we had 2 pianos and 6 keyboards. I had 6 drum sets, little knickknacks, many guitars. It was so much stuff. So the way I got the idea for Altadena Musicians was a few days after the fire, I did a Facebook post and I was talking about the importance of instruments and the value of it. And it's not necessarily the monetary value, it's the sentimental value. And it's the relationships that you have with the instruments that make them special and give them personality. We had a harmonium that my mother-in-law gave us. It was really beautiful. And my 9-year-old daughter, when she was 3, wrote her first song on it. And I have a video of her playing it. And a pair of castanets that I got from my friend Kim Shattuck, who was a singer in a band called Muffs. And I used them on a bunch of recordings. And they were held together with a shoestring. And I can get those castanets. Again, I can go and buy them from the store, but they were special because I played music with her and she passed away. And then about a week and a half after the fire, we came back into town and played a show. My wife's band played, I played drums in her band. And when we played the show, it was our first chance to see friends and neighbors since we evacuated. And some of them showed up and they brought instruments. And some of them were exactly the ones that we lost. So I thought, all these people are helping us replace instruments. How can we just do this for everybody? Because it seems like most households have an extra instrument that doesn't get played. We had 2 banjos and 2 mountain dulcimers. So had our house not perished, we would be donating our extra instruments to people that lost theirs. So I reached out to my friend Liz Garrow and told her about the idea. And she said, if we can figure out a way to create a wedding registry where you can list all the stuff you lost, and then people can see it and they can gift those items to you. So I talked to Dee about it, and she says the best way to do it would be to build an app and have the app be the thing where you can list everything and people can connect with each other directly. But she said it's going to take her a while. So let's get a website up and running really quickly and figure out how we can match people with each other. So we built out altadenamusicians.org. And there's that tab on there. Register with us and share your story. And we just got these beautiful and sad stories from people talking about their instruments, both ones that they lost and ones they wanted to donate.
Can you tell me a story that really was memorable or touched you or affected you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a woman named Irina who said that she started playing piano when she was very young. And she saved up money and she bought her first piano. And it was a white Yamaha Baby Grand, and she named it Snow White. And she said that we traveled with us through 4 different household moves, and her kids learned how to play on it. and they would do a lot of entertaining. They'd have parties and people would be playing. And she was just, I'm devastated that I lost my Snow White, and I'm hoping one day to replace her. I've been working on finding her a white Yamaha Baby Grand. I found her a really nice black one. It's being donated by a synagogue in the Palisades that had some smoke damage, but not very much. But they're replacing the piano. So she's actually going there tomorrow to play the piano and see if she wants to take the black one. And I told her once the white one shows up, she can replace Snow White. So we might be doing that, but that's just one of many stories. There was another woman that reached out that said that they lost their Steinway piano that belonged to their family for a long time. And her grandmother was the first woman to play piano at Carnegie Hall in like 1943. And they lost that family piano. So we're working on replacing that. There was a woman that reached out named Jody, and she said her husband was a bass player. So he had this closet full of bass guitars, and he passed away. And she held on to them for a while, and then she heard about us. She reached out and she's like, I'm ready for some people to have his basses. I want the legacy of those instruments to carry on with other people. And that was really nice. There was a gentleman named Jamie who used to play with David Lee Roth and Roger Daltrey. And so he got one of Jody's husband's basses. It was really nice. There was a flood of people that reached out to us both to donate and also to tell us the stories about what they lost. It's almost the same amount of people donating as the same amount of people that lost things. And we're still trying to reach more because there's a lot of people both in Altadena and the Palisades that just don't know that we have this program up and running. There's no cost to replace the instruments.
I heard there was an exchange of about 3,500 instruments, which is really a lot. That's really something to feel proud of.
Even that number is probably off a bit because about a week ago, there was a gentleman named Steve Reed, who's a really well-known percussionist who played with like Miles Davis and Supertramp. And he passed away last year and had a warehouse full of his treasures, his percussion that he used for his livelihood. She gave some of it away, and she's like, I still have a lot of it. I'd like it to go to fire victims. I invited 9 players down, percussionists that lost stuff, and they were all so happy to have his instruments. And it's really special. And thankfully, we connected with her. Like, I have some of his percussion, like handmade things. That in itself, it was probably 300 pieces of percussion from like big congas and some esoteric stuff. There was like a set of tubular bells. It was great. So like the numbers go up and up every day. We built an app. It's called Instrumental Giving. We're trying to get more people to use the app because people just connect with each other directly. So anyone can download the app and can make an instrument available. They can see the inventory of what people lost, and they can view and they can search. They can look up Gibson and be like, oh, 9 people lost Gibson guitars, and then you just send them a message and just say, hey, I got a Gibson Firebird, right? An SG, send them a picture, and they connect with each other. There's still people that don't necessarily use the app and they just want to get a hold of us directly or go through the website. So it's just whatever form it takes, it's just a matter of connecting people. And we're raising money because we need to. There's a lot of instrument repair. There's a lot of piano moving and piano remediation and tuning that we cover for people because everything is so expensive. If we can save people $500 to move a piano and have it tuned, then we cover it. Because I'm in the situation myself, I'm a really good ambassador for it. And there's been people that didn't want to take any instruments. And then I talked them through the process. For instance, there was a neighbor and I helped her get a guitar and she was overjoyed because it was like the first guitar she ever got. So it's been a lot of that and it's been really lovely. We just have hundreds of photos of these people exchanging from the harmonica, the grand pianos and crazy instruments too. Like, someone reached out and said, I lost a bouzouki. I don't know when I'll find another one. The next day, this woman, Kathy Kurtz, says, I got a 12-string guitar and a bouzouki. I'm like, this guy's going to come over to your house. And they spent the afternoon with each other and she was thrilled. So it's been really lovely.
What really impressed me was how quickly you did this all. And it sounded like you were inspired by first losing all of your instruments and then people being so kind to donate to you and then thinking, gosh, this should be something where everyone can feel the same way that I feel. Just the kindness in the middle of tragedy. Also, like how it's grown. I see you started with the Eaton Fire, but now you're doing the Palisades Fire as well. I don't know if that was something that started growing bigger and bigger. And then I noticed like some of the donations are vinyl records. I'm just going to mention a friend of mine, Scott, 2 of his homes were lost in the Palisades Fire, but he also lost a lot of vinyl records. And I actually reconnected with him because I found a bunch of vinyl records and I said, Scott, hey, I want to donate. Then you could have them if you'd like. But I know that he's also been instrumental with Altadena musicians with loss and also his generosity.
Yeah, I got him a mandolin and then a guitar and a ukulele. And records, that was something early on that we wanted to help people replace. It was part of our whole initiative. Almost more than instruments, it's harder to lose your record collection because you start it when you're so young. Remembering like your first album that you got at Christmas or that you saved up for, and all the ones that were autographed by people or that you looked for a long time, you finally found it, or ones that were friends' bands that put records out that aren't in print anymore. And no matter how much money, you can't replace that. It's just not something that can come back to you. But there's so many people that wanted to help that we just started taking vinyl donations. And whenever we would have a pop-up at an event or we'd have a table, we would bring records out. And if you proved that you're fire impacted, then we just let people show up for free. Because even just like getting 10 or 15 records and getting that David Bowie record that you used to have, or a Beatles album, or John Coltrane or something, it's healing. We raised a little bit of money, and we have a location on the border of Pasadena and Altadena called Altadena Music Center. We're building that out, and we're doing performances there like open mic night. We're building a music studio there, and we're building a free record store. So it's going to be like a permanent record store so that you come once a month, can pick records, just do some free shopping, because they're so expensive now. Like I remember going record shopping, finding records in the discount bin from $2 or $3. But like now those records are like $30, $40. It's so much money. So being able to shop for free, and it's a big initiative. So we want to raise more money so that we can procure more records. So I'm really excited about that. And it's just a nice thing to do to get people some music.
I love that. And I was reading that your whole idea is really kind of based on the Buy Nothing groups. And I'm part of Buy Nothing groups. I love them. The great thing about it is not only do you give and receive, but you also get to meet your neighbors. So you're connecting musicians with other musicians, or music geek people that love vinyl with other music geek people that love vinyl. I also saw that you have events on your website. That's exciting. I saw that you're having one tomorrow. You're in a band called Quasar?
Called Quasar and the Bamboozled. My nickname is Quasar, and I bamboozled a bunch of people into being in my band. A couple days after the fire, I was talking to my kids. We were in the car, and the Talking Heads Burning Down the House, that song was like stuck in my head. So I played it for my kids. I'm like, this is going to be like our family's theme song. I'm like, what is this song? It's crazy. For some reason, me singing that song was like my way of taking the power back from the fire that took our home. So when we came back into town, my band covered the song, and I dragged my kids up on the stage to sing. My daughter played piano, and someone did like a little video of it. So the video got around, and somebody saw it and said, I'm putting together a compilation to raise money for fire-affected families. Would you record a cover of Burning Down the House for it? And I'm like, sure, I'll do that. I'm going to invite just a bunch of fire-impacted musicians to perform on it, just like all fire-impacted musicians. So somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 people showed up, vocalists and instrumentalists. And we did a cover of the Talking Heads Bring Down the House, and there's a video for it on our website and on our YouTube channel at altadenamusicians.org. And I'm really proud of it. It was really a cool experience and a very special day of all these people that we helped get instruments for, meeting each other and building community. And the song came out on this compilation called Give Me Shelter with Diallo Kiley and the Flaming Lips and just a lot of popular bands, and then my band that not many people know, but it was me and like all these people that had a fire impacted. It came out really well. Like I'm really proud of it. It was a really special day, and like a lot of those people are friends with each other now because they met at that recording session. And so it's been really important for me to have people meet each other and share the story of the instrument that they're giving to each other. It's a hollow feeling if you lost something that was special to you and you just buy something that doesn't have any story connected to it. But on the other hand, if you get something from someone and you meet them and you make a connection and they share, I had this guitar and I used it on this recording, and it was gifted to me by my uncle who used to play with Woody Herman. There's all these wonderful stories of people, instruments, and just continuing the legacy by passing it along to someone. It just makes it so much more special and gives him some importance. And it's not exactly the one that you lost, but now it has some kind of meaning to it. It helps in the healing process of getting over what you lost. And I'm never going to have that same exact snare drum. And I got a snare drum from one of the fathers at my daughter's school, and he had it for a long time. It was special to him.
A big thank you to our musical guest, Nick Hexum of 311 and Brandon J. of Altadena Musicians. For more information on Nick Hexum's side projects and 311's music and tour dates, visit nickhexum.com and 311.com. And for more information on Altadena Musicians, visit altadenamusicians.org, and stay tuned for a clip of Nick Hexum's song, Lonely Existence, at the end of our episode. Follow Check Your Head Podcast on our socials, watch us on YouTube, and if this episode made you feel good, please donate to our 501c3 nonprofit at checkyourheadpodcast.com to improve and save the lives of musicians and music fans in need of recovery and solutions. So until next time, be brave, ask for help, and be persistent in finding the mental health and addiction recovery you need.
Gradually drifts to isolation, left for dead. Something that once made you feel connected. So misled, now it leaves you nothing but neglected. Descending, pretending, but you're falling all to pieces. Hopeless, helpless, you reach out for someone to guide you home.
Check Your Head Podcast is kindly supported and partnered with Sweet Relief Musicians Fund, DBSA San Gabriel Valley, Earshot Media, and Lemon Tree Studios in Los Angeles. Visit checkyourheadpodcast.com, where we have over 100 solutions for mental help. Be our friends on social media at Check Your Head Podcast. Watch us on YouTube and support us with a kind donation on checkyourheadpodcast.com. Check Your Head Podcast is sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit, with all donations being tax deductible. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening.